Ford recently released a ton of information on the new 2023 Super Duty. That would be the 250, the 350, and the 450. Well, I'm waiting my turn to drive the new Super Duty. I have seen it in person. Be sure and check that video out. But when I saw it in person, Ford had not yet released complete details on the new and most batshit crazy version of the F250, 350, and 450. Sorry about that. Since this is a family show, I will just say the craziest version ever of Ford's Super Duty. Because they're saying that for 2023, this is going to be the most powerful truck in its class. It's going to tow the most, and it's going to have the highest payload numbers in its class as well. Let's just take a dive right on in. Maximum towing is going to go up to 40,000 pounds. That is not just a tiny bump over where we see the competition. That's a pretty massive leap. That's several thousand pounds more than the next closest competitor. And all of that is possible because payload ratings are going way up in this generation, up to 8,000 pounds maximum. Most of the competition will top out at around 6,000 pounds. There are a few options out there that will go up to about 7,000. That's where we saw most of the last version of the max payload capable Super Duty trucks. This one's going to go all the way up to 8,000 pounds. And that new diesel engine that we got details about before, it's the new high output 6.7 liter version of the Power Stroke V8 diesel. It's going to produce an insane 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. This is a really significant power bump over really anything else that we see out there. Not that long ago, even thinking of a 300 horsepower diesel in this segment was insane. Now we're going to get 500 horsepower, well over 1,000 pound-feet of torque. And that's possible because of Ford's new 10-speed automatic transmission. Yes, you heard that right. Just as I mentioned in the first videos where I was able to take a look at the Super Duty line, everything is going to get a 10-speed automatic transmission under the hood. This is an in-house Ford design. It's loosely based on the 10-speed automatic transmission in the F-150, but obviously much, much beefier for this kind of towing and hauling. And the 10-speed automatic transmission is really the key to why the Super Duty is going to tow as well as it probably will. Obviously, the powerful engine is a component of this, but without the automatic transmission with this many gears, towing 40,000 pounds would be bonkers. Because diesel engines have a relatively narrow power band, so the 10-speed automatic transmission is going to be able to keep the engine in that meaty torque band that we find in a diesel engine without having to really over-rev the engine or under-rev the engine. And if you've ever driven, say, a Cummins turbo diesel with a 3 or 4-speed transmission behind it, you will know that you will get significantly out of the power band. That's not what we see in the modern crop of heavy-duty trucks from GM or from Ford, but General Motors isn't going to be putting this much power behind the new Silverado and Sierra heavy duties. So how do we get to these numbers? Well, I'm glad you asked. There are many asterisks and little cross symbols on Ford's press release, so let's see if we can go through these things. So maximum gooseneck towing, that's where you're going to get the 40,000 pounds. That's going to happen in the F450. In the Super Duty lineup, Ford does things a bit differently than we find with Ram or with Chevy and GM. Those manufacturers just have a 1-ton truck, the 3500 series truck, and there are max payload and max towing versions of the truck. Ford separates things out to the F350 and F450. Both of those theoretically compete with the competition's 1-ton truck. But at any rate, Ford splits it out. So it's going to be F450 there. Now, the F350 is going to have maximum towing of 38,000 pounds. So still pretty healthy and still above the competition, even for that 350 versus the 450. Fifth wheel towing, that's going to top out at 35,000 pounds in the F450. Conventional towing, 30,000 pounds, and apparently that's going to be in a variety of different models there. Maximum conventional towing in the 350 dual rear wheel segment, there it's going to be 28,000 pounds. Really a really high number still. Keep in mind that if you don't have a Class A license, a lot of states in the U.S. don't allow you to tow these kinds of limits. But it is going to give you all the toughness, all the strength, and the heavy-duty components, of course, even if you're just towing 10,000, 15,000 pounds. That's what a lot of folks like when they're looking at 3/4 ton or 1-ton trucks. Also really interesting is what the Tremor will be able to tow. If you aren't familiar with it, the Tremor is the off-road capable version of the Super Duty, so definitely different than we find in the Power Wagon, which is more off-road focused. The Tremor is trying to be a better blend of 3/4 ton capability with some off-road capability as well. And it's really obvious because it's going to tow up to 23,000 pounds. That is a really, really high number. Now, the gas version, it's going to tow 22,000 pounds. They're calling that best in class, I believe, here, according to this. Now, speaking of the engines, there are going to be those 3 different engines, and I have power figures for all 3 of them. The 6.8 liter gasoline engine, that's going to be the standard engine. It's going to give you 405 horsepower, 445 pound-feet of torque. Then there's the 7.3 liter V8, that's going to give you 430 horsepower, 485 pound-feet of torque. They're calling that best in class for a gasoline engine. Then we get the base diesel engine, which is not very base when you look at these specifications because it's already really healthy. It's going to give you 475 horsepower, 1,050 pound-feet of torque. That's for the regular output diesel engine. The high output one, 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. And that's going to all come with 8,000 pounds of payload capability. Now, the double asterisk here indicates that that will be on an F350 dually regular cab, rear-wheel drive, XL trim, gas engine with the heavy-duty payload package. So obviously many asterisks here for that capability. You won't be able to get that 8,000 pounds with the diesel engine. The diesel engine's heavier, so it's going to reduce the payload capability. If you want to know more about the Super Duty, be sure and hit that subscribe button because hopefully I will be driving one early next year, most likely January or February of 2023. Some details are still being finalized there by Ford. They say that deliveries are going to start early 2023. The pricing currently starts at $43,970, and they've announced there's going to be a $1,795 destination charge. I think without a doubt, Ford is really trying to maintain their leadership here with the 3/4 ton and 1 ton and above trucks. We have seen a lot of good changes in the next generation Silverado and Sierra heavy-duty trucks. Hopefully I'll be driving those in early 2023 as well. But if you are looking for the baddest ass truck available in America, it's probably still going to be the F450. I love the differentiation we see in that model because it really has that wide look thanks to the slightly different front axle that the F450 has. It has a really cool look there. And of course, if you want the absolutely most bonkers towing and payload figures, and of course the horsepower figures, you're clearly going to find that in the Ford truck. Obviously, aside from being totally cool, if you're using your F350 or F450 as a work truck, and I know a lot of folks that do, then the extra capability is going to be useful. You're going to notice superior performance when towing, even if you're not towing 40,000 pounds, even if you're just doing 15,000, 20,000 pounds. The 10-speed automatic transmission, the gobs and gobs of torque is simply going to make it perform better if you're doing some of those heavier loads up steeper grades, like you're crossing the Continental Divide, you're going up the Sierra Nevada, etc. If you're doing that kind of long-distance hauling, that is certainly going to make things a lot better. Now, the one thing that surprised me with the Super Duty before we sign off here is that we don't have the fold-flat front console in the upper level trims like we find in the F-150. There was some confusion about that in an earlier video. If you get the 6-passenger version, the bench seat up front, or obviously the regular cab bench seat, then there is a work desk thing attached to the back of the center seat in the front bench. What I mean by the no work surface is that if you're getting most of the cabs, most of the interiors available in the Super Duty, there's a regular center console with a console shifter, and we don't have that folding open desk that you find in those top-end trims of the F-150. Exactly why Ford did that, I'm not quite clear. I think that was a big omission in the cabin. They already had the parts in the F-150. I'm not clear why they didn't just put them in the Super Duty. And then there's the lack of Blue Cruise. I am surprised by that. That may be a later addition to the Super Duty lineup, but if you are doing a lot of long-distance driving, as I know a lot of folks do in their heavy-duty trucks, that would be a really cool feature. Now, admittedly, Blue Cruise is not as well thought out as Super Cruise, which is working its way across the Chevy and GMC lineup. But I would really love to see Ford include that feature, at least at some later date. For more details, hit that subscribe button. I'll get those to you just as soon as possible. And of course, stay tuned for a first drive review, because again, hopefully I'll have my hands on the new Super Duty truck in the next few months. I'll see all of you later.